Welcome back. Across the country, the banning of books is increasingly becoming more popular. Stories about identity and oppression are amongst those that are banned, and in response to this act, the New York Public Library aimed to bring some of those books back. Joining me to discuss their solution to book banning is Bronx Borough Director for the New York Public Library, Kathleen Carrasco. Kathleen, thank you so much for joining me.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Now, can you first just let everybody know what book banning is?
So, book banning is a form of censorship by removing materials from a school or library's collection. And this is usually through a result of objections from groups or individuals who say that they need to protect others, typically children, from difficult information or ideas that are contained in the books.
Now, the practice of book banning was commonly associated with the past, but why is this an occurrence we're seeing in today's world?
So over like the last decade or so, we have seen an explosion of new work from different cultures, viewpoints, and identities, which is great. But it also gives people, more to object to. So because of this, it's a lot of taking place in schools, and kids and teens are seen as most vulnerable and precocious and emotional. So people are, strongly to react to these new voices that are being shared in our literature.
Now, what were some of the books that have been banned, and what are your thoughts on the fact that they were banned?
So we have about four books that we definitely partner up with. So the first one is Stamped, which is Racism, Anti-Racism in You by Jason Reynolds and Ivan Kendi. So we also have Crouching the Rye by J.D. Salinger, Peak by Laurie Anderson, and King and the Dragonflies by Kason Calendar. So a lot of these books have been definitely our top four that we are highlighting here. And my thoughts on these books is these books are being banned, as these are the attempts to kind of like start the opposition and getting these voices of different controversial issues that we're being faced, and especially which highlights the crisis in our nation, which is kind of opposition to what the library's missions are, which is to protect open and free access to information and knowledge, and the tools that are needed to develop the understanding and empathy to fight the division, ignorance, and hate that usually kind of stems across. So by not providing this, it kind of gives a block to where the knowledge gives everyone, which is regardless of our background or circumstance, the power to be active, productive members of our society and democracy. So to censor or limit what's available to them is an attack on like course of American values, but it also eliminates the choice and erases the identity and perspectives that many others are seeking to get.
Now, the NYPL offered a solution to the banning of these books. Can you just tell us a little bit more about that and what inspired it?
Yeah, so definitely the Books for All campaign. It's like makes a small number of these commonly banned books available to anyone in the country to read for free. There's no waits, there's no fines. So all of these books will be available through the library's e-reader app, Simply E, through the ending of May. And by providing these select titles for everyone in the country through May, it gives them access to working with the solution of just finding these different books and making them free for everyone to enjoy.
Now, why was it crucial the NYPL and several other libraries have these banned books available to the public, even if it's just for a limited time?
So part of it, as like I mentioned earlier, is like libraries have been, been a part of making knowledge and information access to available to everyone. So all libraries in the big cities or in small communities have the responsibility and at heart to kind of protect and also to give the democracy of our informed citizens. And this is what we're really protecting is, to make sure that the democracy still is in place. Like, it's not liberal, it's not conservative. It's just an American ideal that we should all be invested in protecting. And because as soon as one perspective or identity is banned and essentially could be erased, it opens the door to many others. And that is really unacceptable.
Now, many of these bans target topics related to race, LGBTQ issues, and even history. What message do you think this shows to people in those communities that their voices are being silenced or their books are being banned?
It really reinforces why many groups continue to feel marginalized. And by banning books that discuss the racism, LGBTQ issues, and more, we're silencing a community whose voices should be heard.
And why do you think it's important to not only have it in libraries, but also have these books available in schools?
Oh yeah, so just kind of highlights in the beginning is like every voice deserves to be heard and every opinion and topic should be heard and read. And as I mentioned earlier, the library's mission is to make knowledge and information accessible to all. And since public libraries began, their role is to connect the public with the knowledge, information, education, and resources. And that is true to the heart of our democracy.
Now, I guess like going back to like just the American school system and just the schools in general, do you think having these books banned from schools could somehow hinder a child or a teen's identity or just their education in general?
Yeah, I think in my opinion, it will definitely limit a student's ability to expand their mind, learn about the different cultures and groups and the history of this country, and just so much more. Because a lot of the kids use the books to access different views of what the world is, and it limits to what they're exposed to just in their environment around them.
And I guess I would just ask you like how have books, even if they're not within those categories, how have they impacted your life and I guess your upbringing as well?
Definitely. Coming, being a Bronx resident and growing up in the Bronx, it just really highlighted me to see the view through the different viewpoints of these different characters in these different books, and also through the imaginative words that you're able to see. And you can kind of put yourself in these different situations. So it creates like, you can create empathy for others through those experiences that at some point you may not even experience because you're not have dealt with them or been exposed to them. So it helps us to kind of create better citizens, I feel, to be in different vulnerable situations, and creates that avenue where a lot of our youth are able to see and experience and be able to remove themselves of where they're currently at, and to be in these different opportunities through these different stories.
And I love that you talked about being from the Bronx because I think that's super important. I know here in the Bronx sometimes students can struggle with education and reading. Could you explain why it's super important for communities like the Bronx to have access to the NYPL and just different sorts of books?
It's extremely important to be as diverse and inclusive to the readings and the literature that we have at NYPL. But only just aside from the books, is also the services and the programs that we offer. I think growing up in the Bronx, like we have been also kind of limited to what we were able to have, and I'm so proud to see all the marks that we have made to include all these different events and programs and services throughout in different organizations and formats, but especially being a part and working with the New York Public Library, we're able to amplify that even more, connecting our youth to after school programs and services that we know can be very impactful in the youth's lives.
So I love the New York Public Library. Actually, I say this all the time. I grew up with the New York Public Library. So I think it's wonderful that these books are just available to everyone. Can you say how did people actually access these books? And are they going to still be up for the month of May?
Yeah, so these books will be accessible through our Simply e-reader app. You can access them through the end of May. And you can go through by downloading Simply E, and that's accessible through the e-readers, through accessing it through the iOS or Android devices. You can download it. Look for books for all collections. Make sure that you're 13 years or older, verifying that, and then you can go ahead and enjoy the books by looking for them through that collection.
And I also want to highlight the fact that there's no library card needed for this, correct? Can you just expand on that a little bit more?
Yeah, so there's no card needed. So all these titles are available to anyone in the country through the end of May. So you don't have to be a New York resident or hold a New York Public Library card to access these materials. So all you have to do is just download the Simply E app and verify that you're 13 years or older, and locate the books under the Books for All collection.
Now, how can people actually stay up to date with the NYPL?
So people can go to our webpage, which is www.nypl.org/books for all, to get more information about this initiative and to have a full list of what's actually happening at your local library. You can go and visit www.nypl.org.
All right. Well, I want to say thank you so much for joining. I love segments like these because I grew up on the library, and I think they're like a huge part of all of our communities. And I love that there's just something for everybody there at the library. And if you could quickly say like that, just point out that there's something for every age at the NYPL.
Yes, so there's definitely going from early literacy all the way up to our older adults. There are a full array of resources and services throughout the library. I do encourage everyone to check out their local library. Or and if you don't know where your local library is at, do check out our webpage to find out, or give your local branch a call by accessing it through our NYPL site.
All right, Kathleen, thank you so much for joining me. We always love to have the NYPL here, and we hope we can talk to you again.
Thank you so much for having me.
We'll be right back with more Open BxRx Tuesday.